In September 1999, in Chile, Camila Bravo vanished while playing on the sidewalk, generating great commotion among her family and the community. 9 days later, workers found something that hinted at a truth far more complex than anyone could have imagined. Before we continue, write in the comments where you are listening from, and at the end, I would like to know your opinion on the outcome of the case. Camila began her day in September 1999, her presence a familiar and cheerful sight in the residential area. She moved with the natural energy of childhood, ready for the day's simple pleasures within her home. It was a normal beginning to what was expected to be a normal day, filled with the quiet companionship of her mother and the promise of play. The morning unfolded calmly, marked by the gentle routines of family life in the quiet neighborhood. Her morning inside the house followed its usual rhythm, a comforting sequence of activities under her mother's watchful eye. Preparations for the day continued without incident, each moment building upon the last in a predictable flow. It was a domestic scene, filled with subtle sounds and shared unspoken understanding, preparing for the transition to outdoor activities. The hours passed uneventfully, carrying the promise of outdoor enjoyment. As midday approached, Camila stepped outside onto the familiar sidewalk of her quiet residential street. The sun warmed the pavement as she prepared for a period of carefree play, a routine observed many times before by neighbors. She found a spot near the entrance of her home, ready to immerse herself in her world of imagination, where every moment held a new possibility for adventure. She engaged joyfully with her toys, settling into an area near the entrance of her home. This scene was a common sight, offering a sense of normalcy and peace to those who passed by throughout the day. A neighbor later recounted that Camila always seemed so full of life, a vibrant presence that brightened the entire street. Her laughter often echoed softly, a gentle melody in the afternoon air. At one point, her gaze momentarily swept across her immediate surroundings, a fleeting observation typical of a child immersed in their own world. The street remained as it always was, quiet and seemingly undisturbed by anything out of the ordinary. The familiar houses stood, the trees swayed gently, and the sounds of the neighborhood continued their low hum around her. Inside, her mother, Carolina, attended to household chores, occasionally casting a glance toward the street to confirm Camila's continued presence. This intermittent check was a part of her maternal routine, a quiet reassurance woven into the fabric of her day. Carolina later expressed that she remembered looking out and everything seemed fine, a peaceful scene that offered no hint of what was to come. A subtle shift in the ambient sounds soon caught Carolina's attention. The playful noises from outside had faded, replaced by an unexpected quietness. The sudden absence of sound was unlike the usual lively activity that normally accompanied Camila's playtime. An instinct, soft at first, began to stir, prompting a gentle curiosity about the silence. With a simple intention to call Camila in for lunch, Carolina moved toward the doorway. It was a moment of mundane routine, a gentle transition from play to mealtime, typical for any household. Her steps were unhurried, expecting to find her daughter easily, ready to gather her for their midday meal together. Her quick glance over the sidewalk and immediate front yard yielded an unexpected view. The spot where Camila had been playing moments before was now empty, an absence that registered with a growing sense of unease. There was no sign of her daughter, not even a stray toy to indicate a recent presence, raising a question in Carolina's mind. The empty stretch of sidewalk, previously alive with a child's presence, now lay silent. This sudden, unnerving stillness, not present moments earlier, marked an abrupt shift in the day's ordinary flow, leaving behind a profound, chilling question. Where had Camila gone? The quiet of the street now held a different, unsettling weight. Before continuing, if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any cases. Carolina, a dedicated librarian, felt an immediate and piercing wave of panic as her quick search of the house for Camila yielded no sign of her daughter. Every room, every corner was empty. The joyful sounds from moments before were gone, leaving behind a chilling void that spoke of a deeper truth. Her heart pounded with a terrifying premonition, a cold dread growing despite her desperate attempts to rationalize the situation. Carolina's distraught cries quickly echoed through the quiet residential area, attracting the concerned attention of nearby neighbors. Among them was Diego, who lived behind the family's property. He and others immediately offered help. They began a spontaneous, frantic search, checking the immediate neighborhood, including yards and side alleys. One neighbor later said that upon seeing Carolina's face, they instantly knew something was profoundly wrong. As the localized search frantically expanded to nearby streets and vacant lots, painful minutes stretched into an hour. The initial anxiety among the family and community volunteers escalated into a deep, bone-chilling fear. Carolina later recalled the terrifying realization, stating that it felt as though the very ground had swallowed her daughter whole. The flicker of hope that had been there began to rapidly dim. The collective mood dramatically shifted from an anxious, hopeful search to a grim certainty. The community recognized that this was no longer a game of hide and seek. It was a serious disappearance, an unexpected void in their peaceful lives. Another neighbor reflected, noting that only God knows the anguish in that mother's eyes. This realization solidified the gravity of the situation for everyone involved. With the sun beginning its slow decline and casting long shadows across the neighborhood, the agonizing decision was made. They had to formally alert the authorities. This transformed a deeply private family crisis into an urgent public alarm, signaling the need for official intervention. The hope for a simple explanation completely vanished, replaced by the harsh reality of an unknown outcome. As twilight deepened on September 15, 1999, a patrol car from the local police force arrived at the residence. Its official presence a stark contrast to the raw distress emanating from the family home. The flashing lights cast an unsettling glow on the quiet street, drawing curious glances from neighbors who had gathered. This formal intervention marked a new, cold phase in the unfolding crisis, replacing frantic community efforts with methodical procedure. Two uniformed officers calmly approached Carolina, their demeanor professional and detached. They began the initial assessment with routine questions about Camila's last known whereabouts and her activities before she vanished. Carolina, still reeling from the shock, tried to recall every detail, her voice strained with emotion. She later recounted that the officers' questions, though necessary, felt distant, almost impersonal, in her moment of profound terror. The process of formally lodging the missing persons report commenced, a bureaucratic step that officially launched a police investigation. This formal act detached the incident from the emotional turmoil of the household, translating a mother's worst fear into a series of protocols. The paperwork served as a stark reminder that this was now a case, subject to established procedures rather than pure emotional reaction. The officers meticulously collected essential data, a description of Camilla, what she was wearing that afternoon, and a precise timeline of events leading up to her disappearance as provided by her mother. They inquired about any unusual occurrences or suspicious individuals seen in the vicinity. Every piece of information, no matter how small, was noted down, forming the initial foundation of their inquiry. The case was officially registered, transforming the family's private agony into a matter of public record and police procedure. This step initiated the first formal actions of a structured search, shifting focus from a localized, frantic hunt to an organized, broader investigation. The arrival of law enforcement signified that the search for Camilla was now a collaborative, albeit dispassionate, effort. On the evening of September 15th, the local police force immediately initiated a perimeter search, meticulously focusing on the residential street and the adjacent blocks where Camilla was last seen. The coordinated effort aimed to cover every possible corner of the immediate neighborhood before nightfall. Officers methodically moved through the quiet area, questioning residents and scanning every detail, hoping for an instant lead. Specialized canine units arrived shortly after, deploying trained dogs to carefully sweep the immediate vicinity around the house, including gardens, backyards, and alleyways. The dogs' keen senses worked tirelessly, their handlers guiding them through the dark. Despite their diligent efforts, the initial sweeps yielded no definitive scent or trace of the missing girl. Hundreds of neighbors and community members, alongside police, organized into search parties, methodically combing through nearby vacant lots and undeveloped areas as night fell. Armed with flashlights, their concerned faces illuminated the darkness, each person driven by a desperate hope. This massive, spontaneous effort spoke volumes about the community's collective distress. A local resident later shared that it was impossible to just sit by, knowing a child was missing. The challenging terrain of the search area, including overgrown sections and abandoned structures, presented significant difficulties for the ground teams. Thick bushes and piles of debris made progress slow and arduous. Volunteers navigated uneven ground, their frustration mounting with every empty space. One volunteer mentioned their exhaustion, saying they felt utterly drained by the endless searching, praying to God for strength to continue. By the morning of September 16th, a police helicopter was deployed, providing an aerial perspective to cover a wider expanse of the suburban landscape. The helicopter flew low over rooftops, open fields, and distant parks, searching for any anomaly. This broader view aimed to identify any visible clues that might have been missed by ground teams in the initial hours. Days passed, marked by the meticulous but fruitless efforts of both professional investigators and dedicated volunteers, with each hour deepening the collective frustration and despair. The relentless search continued, yet every new day brought no closer to finding Camilla. Another volunteer reflected that it was hard to keep hope when every new search turned up nothing. During one sweep through a nearby empty lot, a small worn hair tie was discovered near a construction perimeter. Briefly, hopes surged through the search party, believing it could be a crucial sign. However, after careful examination, it was determined not to belong to Camilla, and the item was dismissed as non-contributory, a fleeting moment of false hope. Investigators, in the absence of any ransom demands or clear signs of struggle, began to cautiously consider a kidnapping scenario. This theory guided their early questioning of residents and their review of local activity. They considered who might take a child from her street without asking for anything in return, a perplexing aspect of the unfolding mystery. The widespread search continued relentlessly through September 23rd, with increasing public appeals and media coverage across the region. Despite the intensified efforts and calls for information, no substantial leads emerged. The case remained at a disheartening standstill, deepening the mystery surrounding Camilla's disappearance and intensifying the community's anguish. On September 25, 1999, the investigation into Camilla's disappearance fundamentally shifted, prompting the local police force to re-examine all previously collected information. This new phase of the inquiry initiated a fresh series of interrogations with individuals closely connected to the family. The air in the precinct felt heavy, with a renewed sense of purpose, as the grim reality of the situation took hold. Investigators, now operating under a different premise, meticulously compiled a list of family members, close acquaintances, and immediate neighbors who would be subjected to more intense scrutiny. They sought any narrative gaps or hidden motives that might have been overlooked in the initial days. Every relationship and interaction within the community was re-evaluated, looking for subtle indications. Carolina, Camilla's mother, a librarian by profession, underwent another round of questioning. Her despair was palpable, etched onto her face, as the police probed deeper into the dynamics of her household and her relationships with those around her. She later confided that the questions felt like a painful intrusion, but she understood their necessity for finding answers. Diego, the neighbor who lived at the back of the family's property, found himself called in for an extensive interview with the local police. He had been visibly active in the community's search efforts, offering comfort to Carolina. This interview was a more formal and prolonged session than any previous casual conversations with officers during the search. During Diego's questioning, as he calmly recounted his movements and observations from the day Camilla vanished, detectives noticed subtle inconsistencies. There were slight discrepancies between his current statement and previous informal accounts he had given during the initial search. A detective remarked that something about his story just did not quite sit right, a fleeting sensation they couldn't ignore. These minor contradictions, though not immediately incriminating, created a slight pause in the investigators' assessment. This prompted them to revisit other witness testimonies for comparative analysis, seeking to confirm or refute Diego's narrative. They meticulously cross-referenced details, trying to piece together a clearer picture of that fateful afternoon. The focus of the interview gradually narrowed, with investigators meticulously pressing Diego on the specific details where his narrative seemed to falter. They quietly worked to build a comprehensive profile of his actions and responses, his calm exterior beginning to show cracks under the sustained probing questions. The tension in the room grew subtly with each unanswered query. On September 25, 1999, in the precinct offices, investigators from the local police force convened. The grim reality of Camilla's discovery on September 24th, weighing heavily upon them. This tragic turn irrevocably shifted their entire approach to the case. The atmosphere was somber, focused, as they began to recalibrate their efforts, understanding the profound implications of the new information. The team meticulously reviewed the preliminary findings from the abandoned construction site where the body was located. They noted the advanced state of decomposition and, crucially, the proximity of the location to Camilla's home. One of the lead investigators commented that the site's closeness suggested a perpetrator intimately familiar with the neighborhood. Discussions then centered on the autopsy's initial report. It definitively confirmed asphyxia as the cause of passing and placed the time of passing on September 15th, the very day Camilla vanished. This precise timing tightened the crucial timeline significantly, eliminating many previous theories and focusing the inquiry on a very specific window of opportunity. The unusual circumstances of the body's placement within the abandoned construction site became a key point of discussion. This raised immediate questions about the perpetrator's intent and their detailed knowledge of the area, suggesting premeditation or a hurried attempt to conceal evidence. Another detective pondered whether the perpetrator had used the site before. Investigators then revisited Diego's recent interrogation. They specifically highlighted the contradictory details within his alibi and timeline from September 15th. These inconsistencies, previously noted, now appeared far more significant and problematic in light of the autopsy results and the specific time of passing. One prevailing theory posited a swift, opportunistic act by someone local, perhaps even a neighbor, who knew the area well. This individual would have been capable of committing the fatal act and then promptly concealing the body within the immediate vicinity. An officer remarked that it seemed like an impulsive act by someone familiar with the terrain. Another line of thought explored the possibility of an initial abduction attempt that went wrong. This scenario suggested an immediate escalation of events, which would explain the rapid timeline from Camilla's disappearance to her passing. The detectives debated whether the initial intention was always fatal, or if events spiraled unexpectedly. Ultimately, the detectives converged on the necessity of a renewed, intensely focused investigation into the immediate circle of acquaintances and neighbors. Diego, with his contradictory statements and close proximity to the family, now unequivocally emerged as a central figure in their collective thought process, a person of profound interest. The morning of September 24th, 1999, dawned with a heavy cloud of despair hanging over the region, following 9 relentless days of searching for Camilla. With no success and no substantial leads, a deep sense of anguish had settled upon the community. Each passing hour intensified the fear that had taken root, replacing the initial hope with a chilling uncertainty about the young girl's fate. At a construction site located approximately 600 meters from Camilla's home, a routine workday commenced for a group of early shift laborers. They began their tasks, completely unaware that their daily routine was about to lead to a somber and profound discovery that would irrevocably alter the course of the ongoing investigation. The mundane sounds of their work filled the air. As one of the workers began clearing debris in a secluded corner of the unfinished structure, he noticed an irregularity in the disturbed earth. It was a shape that did not belong amidst the discarded construction materials, an unnatural mound that caught his eye. His curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of unease, compelled him to investigate further. A closer look revealed something partially obscured beneath the rubble, a sight that immediately triggered a chilling realization among the workers. Their operations abruptly halted, replaced by a collective gasp of horror. A worker later commented that what they saw made their blood run cold, prompting an urgent call to the local police force. Investigators quickly arrived at the scene. The construction site immediately cordoned off with official tape, transforming it into a secure zone. The grim confirmation was made. The remains belonged to a young girl, believed to be Camilla, bringing a tragic and heartbreaking end to the desperate 9-day search. The community's worst fears were now confirmed. The discovery of the body irrevocably transformed the entire nature of the investigation. It shifted abruptly from a missing person case, filled with vague possibilities, to a full-scale homicide inquiry, demanding a completely different, more intense approach from law enforcement. The focus narrowed, and the search for a missing child became a hunt for a perpetrator. Preliminary forensic observations at the site, coupled with the subsequent autopsy report, confirmed passing by asphyxia. Crucially, the report also placed the time of passing on September 15th, the same day Camilla vanished. An investigator later stated that the discovery of that young, lifeless body changed everything, and prayed that God would help the family find peace. This evidence immediately pointed towards a deliberate act of violence. This critical piece of information refocused the entire police effort. Previous theories of abduction without ransom were immediately discarded, as they no longer aligned with the concrete facts now available. The scope of potential suspects narrowed significantly, now concentrating solely on individuals with direct proximity and clear opportunity on the day of her disappearance. The found body became the singular, undeniable truth that now guided every subsequent decision and action taken by the investigators. It provided a concrete, albeit tragic path toward identifying the perpetrator. All previous conjecture dissolved, replaced by a clear, undeniable reality that demanded justice. On September 26, 1999, the local police force intensified their interrogation of Diego. His prior inconsistencies, once subtly noted, now loomed large, casting a heavy shadow of suspicion over his demeanor. The immense weight of the investigation, intensified by the tragic discovery, bore down upon him. Every answer he gave was scrutinized, every pause analyzed, as the officers sought a clearer picture of the events. Under the relentless pressure of questioning, Diego's carefully constructed narrative began to fracture. Investigators systematically presented him with irrefutable details that connected him directly to the events of September 15th. A seasoned detective later remarked that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has an undeniable way of eventually revealing itself, illuminating the darkest corners. Eventually, Diego confessed to the authorities, detailing the horrifying sequence of events. He explained how he had lured Camilla to his home, located at the back of the family's property. There, he tragically caused her passing through asphyxiation. Hours later that night, driven by panic and a desperate need for concealment, he hid her body at the nearby construction site. The official confirmation that the young girl's body, discovered on September 24th, belonged to Camilla, was solemnly delivered to the authorities. This grim news brought a devastating and final closure to the 9-day search, solidifying the community's worst fears. The investigation had now irrevocably shifted, solely focused on securing justice for her tragic fate. Carolina, Camilla's dedicated mother and a librarian, received the heartbreaking news of her daughter's passing and the confession of their neighbor Diego. A profound wave of grief washed over her, mingled with an overwhelming sense of betrayal from someone she had known and trusted. She later described the depth of the pain as simply unimaginable. Following his confession, Diego was formally arrested on September 26, 1999. His participation in the tragic event was now undeniable, unequivocally initiating the legal process towards a formal trial. The wider community reacted with a mixture of shock and profound outrage, grappling with the disturbing realization that the perpetrator was someone familiar. In March 2001, after a thorough judicial process that meticulously reviewed all the evidence, Diego was found guilty. He was subsequently sentenced to life in prison, a severe and final penalty for the heinous crime committed against Camilla. The verdict, though offering a measure of justice, could never fully heal the deep wounds left by such an immense loss. The resolution brought a somber finality to Carolina and the broader community, a collective wound that slowly began its long process of healing. This period was marked by profound mourning and quiet reflection on shared human resilience in the face of such profound loss. Amidst the sorrow, there was a quiet understanding that, even in the darkest moments, the grace of a higher power offers a pathway to eventual solace. If you followed along to the end, please like the video, Write in the comments what you thought of the case's resolution, and take a moment to subscribe and activate the notification bell. Stay with me and watch the next video on the card appearing here on the screen. I'll see you in the next case on our channel.